There we go. Alright, so I finished my finals, so now I get to make a video on how to do Hybrid Scoundrel. Uh, which is the thing that I sort of discovered in the process of trying and failing to make support Scoundrel work. I found sort of an actually, in my opinion, useful build, which is Hybrid Scoundrel. Um, so, what is Hybrid Scoundrel? Basically, it's like Baby Scott build. It's not something that I think competes with Scott's build as much as I think it competes with Lava Whale's build as a sort of more beginner friendly way of playing Scoundrel. And the two advantages of it is that I think makes it a lot better for beginners is that A, it sort of still supports a little bit by using its flint card, which normally in very high level plays isn't as useful because if you're running like very competent rotation mages, their weakness will override your flint card. But up until you hit the point where you're running like competent rotation mages, you're getting a big bonus out of using that flint. Um, the other thing is that this transitions a lot better into Scott's build, which is better than both Lava Whale's build and this build. Um, in that basically this gives a very beginner friendly way of playing Scoundrel, which then as you get better at it transitions really easily into playing Scott's build. You build up a lot of the skills required for Scott's build, and then just through a couple of small mechanical changes you can kind of transition over. So how do you do it? Uh, First things first, like normal Scoundrel things. So I'm hitting curve shots. You want to be farther away so that you're hitting rank 5s, but you want to make sure that you're keeping that rank 5 debuff on him. So just every about 10 seconds or so, you want to just make sure that you're like weaving in those curve shots. Usually people will do that with the charge pie of their rotation. And that's the other thing is you want to be doing that whole charge shot, shoot, shoot, charge shot, shoot, shoot, charge shot, shoot, shoot. Just like that. Charge, shot, shot. Charge, shot, shot. And you do that because you want to be using your ammo as fast as you get it. You're noticing that I'm more or less breaking even. Because I'm focusing completely on my charge shot rotation, I'm going a little negative on ammo, but when you're doing other stuff and in more like realistic scenarios, you're gonna be pretty much breaking even on your bullets. Um, Now, the other thing, which is the thing that actually defines this build, which is how I'm using my cards. So, the reason why this is easier than Scott's build is that what I'm doing with my cards is a lot simpler and very deterministic. Um, I'm not making nearly as many decisions. It's just for almost every card in my deck, there's just a single action that's tied to it. Um, so essentially what I'm doing is if I get light or ice, so ice or light, these two cards, I'm just immediately burning them. If I get flame or flint, I'm immediately using them. And then if I get an ash card, that's when I then burn and use my poison. Which you'll notice I already have a poison on my hip. And for the most part, every deck rotation I will have a poison on my hip. Um that's more or less guaranteed. So just the moment that I draw an ash card, I just burn and then throw up my vines card and continue on my way. Vines is the only thing that I have to do any amount of thinking for, which is essentially boils down to if I have a vines, I use my vines, and if I don't already have a vines, then I save it. In every deck rotation, more or less, I'm going to save a vine, or basically, I'm going to get 2 vines in every deck rotation. So I'm going to shuffle it once, and then use it once, and then shuffle it once, and then use it once. Just over and over and over again. So why do we burn ice and light? It's because the empowerment for both ice and light are very good. Damage empowerment affects all of the cards in your deck, despite what like would be logical to think. Using damage empowerment with any card in your deck makes that card do more damage, even if it's not normally a damage card. If I damage empower a flint card, that flint shot will do bonus damage for whatever reason. The other thing is that the damage empowerment the potency of damage cards makes damage or makes any sort of debuff last longer. Instead of being 10 seconds, it'll be 14 seconds, which if you get lucky on that second Vines card and you manage to damage empowerment your Vines card, you're having a good time. Because then you get like bonus damage on that shot, and then also the Vines ticks 4 more times. Um, which is really good. The other thing is sometimes you'll get it on like a flint or a flame, and the flint is really good because it's more damage and also you get more weakness, and then flame is sort of whatever, it just does more damage, but still damage is damage. And getting more damage is a lot better than healing because you're never gonna need to heal yourself. And slowing, which is whatever, not super useful. Um, yeah, that's about that. You'll notice that the way that I have it set up here, this is like I don't play Scoundrel, so for all I know, this could be there may be other methods for this, but just in the process of thinking about it for a tiny bit, I sort of what I do is just I grab my card, and if I want to use it, I just immediately let go. And you'll notice I don't have to like throw up my card. Is that if you take a card and you just immediately drop it, it'll go above your head. And then if I get a card and I want to burn it, I'll just immediately hit my trigger. Like I don't have to do a whole lot of movement with my hand. I'm sitting down right now, so my hand is sort of sitting on my knee here. And just like it's very robotic. I sort of tried to like take as little movement out of it to try and make it as efficient as possible so that you can get through your deck as fast as possible. Is you want to get very, very quick about it. Is essentially just like I see flame card in the corner of my vision, I just immediately drop it and continue on my way. Um, when you're starting out, you're probably going to be taking a little more time with this, so you're probably going to be using your cards about every charge shot. Essentially, just my hand is off here doing this thing, and I'm sort of having to look back and forth. And make decision making, be like, oh man, okay, I got a light. What do I do with that? Oh yeah, I burn it. Um, later on, when you get better at it, you're gonna want to sort of learn to use these two hands independent. That basically it takes about 3 seconds to do a charge shot, shoot, shoot, and it takes about 2 seconds to be able to draw a card. So they're sort of running on different timing cycles. And when you get very, very good at Scoundrel, especially Scott's build style builds like this and Scott's build, is that you learn to sort of make these separate. And especially you just learn not to pay attention to my gun hand. My gun hand is just doing something over here. It's just doing that charge shot, shot, shot automatically. And all of my attention is just focused on what's happening over here. It's like, oh, I need to what happened to my Vines card there? Very weird. Um it's just I don't play Scoundrel, so I'm struggling with it. It's just all of my attention is just here while my hands are just doing their thing over there, making sure to do that, and it takes a bit of practice. But that's why I think that this build is good. Is that you build up those skills and you get to the point where you can sort of multitask. Um and then you can sort of transition over to Scott's build and learn to do the more complex things that happen over here. Because Scott's build is doing like, oh, I got a Flint card without a Vines card, then I save it, and now I got my Vines card, and now I can shuffle, and essentially Scott's build is just the most optimized possible rotation or like decision making for your deck, which is very overwhelming for new players. Um, yeah. How does it compare? It's not as strong as Scott's build, but it's pretty close. Basically, Scott's build gets 3 Vines in their deck every rotation, while as this gets 2. Which, because it's essentially 3 poisons in an 8 card deck versus 2 poisons in a 7 card deck, actually ends up meaning that you get about, I think I did the math, it was 76%, we'll just call it 3/4. You get about 3/4 of the poisons. A little bit higher than that, but about 3/4 of the poisons with this build than Scott's build. Which is still, like, pretty good. Yeah, I'm gonna make a post below this about tile sets, because I sort of looked into the tile sets. They're almost the same as Scott's tile sets. I just, um, I think one of them I want to do differently, and I'll explain why in the post. Um, it procs off of shuffling the poison, and because I'm only doing it once instead of twice, and just the fact that I'm not a huge fan of it anyways, I think I want to replace it with something else. And the other thing is that I'm gonna post about healing tiles because I just like healing tiles. Like healing tiles are just so much less gross than non-healing tiles for every class. Just like you're receiving healing, your tiles just become so much nicer. Um, but again, I'll make a post about that separately. But yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. So yeah.